Title suggestion: Why your information diet is destroying your focus, according to the I Ching. In 1048 BC, a man was locked in a stone dungeon for 7 years, waiting for an execution that seemed inevitable. His crime was possessing a wisdom that the ruling tyrant feared. While the world outside burned with the decadence and cruelty of the dying Shang dynasty, this prisoner, King I, did not beg for mercy. He did not plot an escape. Instead, he looked at the cracks in the stone walls and the shadows cast by his cell bars. He realized that the greatest power in the universe isn't held by those who command armies, but by those who understand what they allow to enter their minds and what they allow to leave their lips. He wrote a single sentence about the corners of the mouth that explains why you feel mentally exhausted, spiritually hollow, and perpetually distracted in the modern world, despite having everything you thought you wanted. You are currently starving, not for food, but for substance. You are gorging yourself on digital junk food, outrage, trivia, and the hollow opinions of strangers, hoping it will satisfy a hunger it was designed to exploit. The I Ching, the oldest book in human history, predicted this exact crisis 3 millennia ago. It warned that when a society loses its ability to distinguish between true nourishment and false sweetness, that society is already dead. It just hasn't fallen over yet. Today, we decode the 27th hexagram, E, the secret of the jaws, and I will show you how the ancient art of nourishment is the only thing that can save your focus, your career, and your sanity in a world that wants to consume you. To understand why a 3,000-year-old text matters to your productivity today, you must feel the weight of the world in which it was born. We are in the twilight of the Shang dynasty. The Bronze Age is at its peak, but the heart of the empire is rotting. The Emperor Zhou Xin is a man of legendary strength and terrifying cruelty. History tells us he built a forest of meat, where he and his court would feast while the peasants starved. He ignored the omens. He ignored the cycles of nature. He believed that power was something you took and consumed until there was nothing left. In this environment, the mere act of thinking clearly was a revolutionary act. King I, the prisoner of Yoli, was the antithesis of this excess. When used his time in prison to refine the Bagua, the 8 trigrams, into the 64 hexagrams we know as the I Ching, he wasn't just writing a book of fortune-telling. He was mapping the DNA of change itself. He saw that everything in life, the rise of a startup, the fall of a marriage, the health of a human body, follows a predictable cycle. And at the center of these cycles sits the concept of E. In the ancient pictograph for E, we see an open mouth, the upper and lower jaws. It is a symbol of sustenance. But King Wen saw something deeper. He saw that the mouth is the gatekeeper of the soul. Think about the last time you felt truly fed. Was it after a 3-hour YouTube rabbit hole? Was it after a frantic day of answering 200 emails? Or was it something else? Something quiet? The bridge between 1000 BC and now is the realization that we are biological systems operating on ancient software in a high-speed digital environment. The Shang Emperor died because he couldn't stop consuming. Modern leaders are failing because they cannot stop reacting. The stakes in King Wen's time were life and death, literal beheading or kingship. Your stakes are different, but no less final. The death of your potential, the erasure of your presence, and the slow atrophy of your ability to think for yourself. The first core teaching of the oracle's wisdom regarding nourishment begins with a simple, devastating observation. The text says, "Pay heed to the providing of nourishment and to what a man seeks to fill his own mouth with." Notice the 2 parts of that sentence. It does not just say watch what you eat. It says watch what you provide and watch what you seek. To decode this in plain language, you are a product of your inputs, but your value is defined by your outputs. If you spend your morning consuming the outrage of the day on X or Reddit, you are filling your mouth with bitter herbs. You cannot then expect to speak words of wisdom or perform acts of genius in your work an hour later. Your jaws have been busy grinding on stones. Consider the modern example of a high-performance executive who starts their day by checking the news and their stock portfolio before they've even kissed their spouse. They believe they are staying informed. The I Ching would say they are seeking nourishment from the wasteland. By the time they arrive at their first meeting, their mental energy is already depleted by things they cannot control. They have consumed noise, and so they produce noise. The actionable principle is this: your first 3 hours of the day are the sacred gate. Nothing enters that has not been invited. No news, no social media, no external demands. You nourish yourself first with silence and deep work, or you will spend the rest of the day starving for clarity. Did you know that the average person touches their phone over 2,600 times a day? Every touch is a bite of nourishment. Every notification is a feeding. We are the most overfed and undernourished generation in history. The second teaching from Hexagram 27 is even more provocative. The text warns, to seek nourishment from the summit is evil. This sounds counterintuitive. Why wouldn't we want to seek nourishment from the summit, the highest point? In the context of the I Ching, the summit refers to the source of power or the top-down authority. To seek nourishment from the summit means looking outside of yourself for validation, for the next big secret, or for someone else to tell you what to believe. It is the guru trap. It is the belief that if you just buy one more course, read one more 10-step guide, or follow one more influencer, you will finally be full. Look at the rise and fall of hustle culture icons over the last decade. Thousands of young entrepreneurs sought nourishment from the summit of these gurus, copying their lifestyles and their mantras. But because the nourishment didn't come from their own internal jaw, their own hard work and unique perspective, it turned to ash. They were left with the debt of the courses and the emptiness of a borrowed life. The I Ching teaches that true nourishment is bottom-up. It starts with your own roots. The actionable principle is stop seeking the secret from those above you and start mastering the basics within you. Mastery is not the acquisition of new information. It is the deep digestion of what you already know to be true. The third teaching moves from the input to the output. The text says, turning away from nourishment to the meadow. To continue thus brings misfortune. The meadow represents the easy path, the path of least resistance. In terms of your speech and your actions, it means choosing what is popular over what is true. It means feeding the crowd what they want to hear, so they will give you the nourishment of their applause. This is the trap of the modern creator, the modern politician, and even the modern parent. We become so afraid of starving for attention that we abandon our core principles to graze in the meadow of public opinion. Think of a company like Theranos or many of the failed Web3 projects of 2022. They turned away from the nourishment of actual product development and scientific rigor to graze in the meadow of hype and venture capital marketing. They told the world what it wanted to hear. They filled the mouths of their investors with sugar. But sugar does not build bone. It does not build a future. When the winter came, they had no substance to fall back on. The misfortune wasn't just financial. It was a total collapse of character. The actionable principle. If your words don't cost you anything, they aren't worth anything. True nourishment requires the chewing of difficult truths. The final core teaching of Hexagram 27 is the transition from self to the world. The sage provides nourishment for the worthy, and thus reaches all the people. This is the secret of sustainable leadership. You cannot give what you do not have. If you are empty, you will only drain those around you. If you are filled with poison, you will only infect them. But the sage knows that once they have mastered their own mouth, once they have curated their inputs and refined their speech, their very presence becomes a source of nourishment for others. They don't have to try to lead. They lead by the quality of their being. Take the example of Patagonia's founder, Yvon Chouinard. He didn't follow the summit of corporate greed. He didn't graze in the meadow of fast fashion. He nourished his company with a radical commitment to the environment and his employees. Because the input was integrity, the output was a brand that people don't just buy, they believe in. By nourishing his worthy mission, he reached all the people and changed the industry forever. The actionable principle: your primary duty to your team, your family, or your audience is to remain well-fed on truth and purpose. Your health is their wealth. We have traveled from the dungeons of the Shang dynasty to the boardrooms of the 21st century. But wisdom is useless if it remains in the head. It must move to the hands. You have heard the theory of the corners of the mouth. Now, I am giving you 3 specific, concrete actions you must take this week to reclaim your nourishment. These are not suggestions. These are the rules of the jaw. First, the digital fast of the first hour. Starting tomorrow, you will not touch a screen for the first 60 minutes of your waking life. No exceptions. Not for the time, not for a podcast, not for a quick check of the weather. Your mind is in its most absorbent state when you wake up. By checking your phone, you are allowing the entire world to dump its trash into your mouth before you've even had a glass of water. For this week, your only nourishment in that first hour is your own thoughts, a physical book, or a conversation with a human being in the same room as you. You will feel an itch. You will feel anxiety. That is the feeling of a junkie wanting their fix. Observe it. Let it pass. By Thursday, you will notice a thickness in your focus that you haven't felt in years. Second, the 3 gates audit of speech. Before you speak this week, especially in meetings or on social media, you must pass your words through the 3 gates of the sage. Gate 1, is it true? Gate 2, is it necessary? Gate 3, is it kind? If it doesn't pass all 3, keep your jaws closed. We leak an incredible amount of life force through idle gossip, complaining, and performative opinions. By restricting your output to what is true, necessary, and kind, you can serve your nourishment. You will find that people start listening to you with more intensity. Why? Because they know that when you open your mouth, something of substance is coming out. You are no longer grazing in the meadow. You are providing from the storehouse. Third, identify your summit and abandon it. Think of the one person or source of information you rely on too much for your truth. It might be a specific news anchor, a YouTube philosopher, or a demanding boss. This week, stop consuming them entirely. If you think you need them to understand the world, that is a sign of a malformed jaw. You have become dependent on pre-chewed food. This week, read the source text of your own life. Look at your own data. Trust your own observations of your business or your relationships. Seek nourishment from the ground up. This is how you develop the strength of the jaw that king when used to survive his prison cell. A sudden flash of a ticking clock, then a montage of all the B-roll scenes so far, played in reverse. Remember, the I Ching is called the Book of Changes. It assumes that you are in a state of flux. You are not stuck with a shallow mind or a distracted life. You are simply in a cycle of poor feeding. But cycles can be broken. The moment you change what you pay heed to, you change the destination of your life. King Wen survived the dungeon. He didn't just survive. He emerged to lay the foundation for the Zhou dynasty, which would become the longest-lasting dynasty in Chinese history. It lasted 800 years. His empire wasn't built on bronze or jade. It was built on the the principle of correct nourishment. He understood that a man who can control his mouth can control his destiny. He knew that the tyrant Zhou Xian, with all his forests of meat, was actually the one who was starving. You are at the corners of your own mouth. Every click, every word, every thought is a choice between the summit of evil and the nourishment of the sage. Don't be the man who dies of thirst while standing in a river of information. Close the screen. Open your eyes. Feed your soul. If you found value in this ancient map, the next episode on the Oracle's wisdom will dive into Hexagram 29, the abysmal, how to find your way when you are completely surrounded by danger. You won't want to miss that feeding. The book of your life is being written one bite at a time. Make sure it's a story worth digesting. In 500 BC, they said the mouth is the gate of disaster. Today, we know it is also the gate of your divinity. Choose wisely what you let through.